Ken?
Pledge of Allegiance, and JJ, would you lead us?
Commissioner Salgin,
Present.
West,
Here.
Van Essen,
Present.
Collins,
Here.
Stevenson.
Here.
Thank you. At this time in the meeting, we open up for public discussion. If there's anybody that would like to address the commission on items that are not on our agenda this evening, you can take the podium. Would anybody like to address the commission? Okay, very good. Then at this time of year, we do a reorganization of our commission. And so I would like to open that up for nomination for chairman and vice chairman.
For the chairman position, we have traditionally, Gary Barton was the vice chair and he would have rotated into the position. Deborah has traditionally followed him. So I would nominate Deb as the chairperson.
Second.
Very good. Oh, we could just do a voice vote on that then. Okay, then all in favor of Deborah taking over as chairperson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Then I would like to nominate James West for vice chair and see if there's a second there.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Very good. Any opposed? Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you, George.
And then I will formally hand over the instructions to
Okay.
Deborah. We're not going to change seats tonight, so because we'll all
have to sign out and sign on,
Exactly.
so.
all logged in. I will hand you the gavel as well.
Oh, yeah.
And congratulations.
Okay, the approval of the minutes of our last meeting. Do we have anyone make a motion for that?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Let's see, is that a spoken vote as well?
Can you hit vote or do I need to do that?
It's grayed out.
Okay, I can hit it.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
So you're still in charge of.
Just tell me what to do and I'll do
Starting the
it.
vote.
I'll be your assistant.
All right. Okay. So we have a public hearing, and for our public hearing, what we'll do is I will announce the item to be heard. Our staff will present a report and recommendation. Then we will ask questions if we have any of our planning director. Then we'll open the public hearing. The applicant can speak to us. When you do speak to us, we ask that you come up to the podium, state your name and address, and talk to us. And then if we have any questions, the commissioner have questions, we'll ask you. Following that, anybody else who is in favor of it can speak. Anybody who is opposed can speak. And then the applicant has a chance to rebut anything that came up. After all the testimony has been given, we're going to close the public hearing and we'll discuss the item, and then we will take a vote. Once we have voted, if you do not agree with how we have voted, you have an option to appeal to the city, and you can talk to Ken or Mitzi about that to appeal our decision. So first on our list is the public hearing about the Town Place Suites by Marriott Hotel. Ken.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. At this time, I'd like to introduce the staff report into record. The request is in front of you tonight to construct a 54,382 square foot, 4-story, 91 room Town Place Suite by Marriott Hotel. It is in the C4 or Highway Service District. The hotel will contain 2 meeting rooms, a swimming pool, an exercise room, and an off-street parking facility, and associated landscaping. It's on 2.25 acres, and it does sit right next to the Angle Petroleum there. So it's kind of center of your screen is that big vacant empty lot that's I think everybody's familiar with. In the past, there was a couple hotels approved on the site in previous years, 2003, and again in 2007, they re-upped that approval. But for unknown reasons at that time, the developers chose not to move forward with the projects at that time. So the building, like I said, is 54,000 roughly square feet and features a host of rooms for amenities there. All the rooms are studio rooms, meaning that each room contains a small kitchen or food prep area within each suite. The exterior of the building is predominantly stucco with different colors and finishes to accent the building. The roof is mostly flat, a flat parapet roof to hide all the mechanical equipment, with accents of a few sloped roof areas, as you can see in the drawing. The entrance to the building will be adorned with a porte cochere for guest drop-off. All windows will be sound rated to cut down on some of the freeway noise, which does help reduce, again, like the freeway noise from the proximity is to the freeway. I'll step through a few elevations here. So there's just a couple different elevations. It's hard to see, it is kind of grainy on those, but this is more of what was sent to us with the coloring schemes that they have. There's a couple options they're proposing. This is more of a earth tone with some burgundy and brown in it. They also have a different option there. I think the first one was more I'm sorry, that's green with some burgundy accents, and then you do have more of a brown with burgundy accents. Again, just the colored rendering for the commissions to view there. The project does include a paved off-street parking facility, which meets city standards. It includes 93 total stalls, 89 standard stalls with 3 standard accessible spaces and 1 van accessible space. Although not indicated on the site plan, the site will include bike parking areas to meet city of Ripon requirements. All parking stalls do meet city standard, which is 10 by 19. We do have a little bit wider stalls here in Ripon. Access to the site will be provided by 2 commercial driveway approaches, both on East Main, which allow continuous circulation throughout the site. So one driveway approach is actually adjacent to Angle Petroleum here on the eastern edge of the site, and the second driveway approach is tucked up against kind of the overpass there. The driveway approach coming out by the overpass there will be a right out only turn movement. It'll be striped and signed that way because of visibility issues with the overpass abutment there. So that is a condition of approval. There is no site lighting indicated on the plans, but there will be lighting provided, which will have to meet City of Ripon standards. Once submitted, the lighting plan will be reviewed in more detail by the Ripon Police Department and Planning Department. First of all, to ensure that there's adequate lighting around the site for security reasons, and to ensure that all lighting is appropriately shielded so it doesn't glare on neighboring properties. The site plan does indicate that the site will contain about 21,000 or roughly 22,000 square feet of landscaping, which is 22.37%. It does exceed the city standard of a minimum of 15% for the highway service district. The applicant at this time has not indicated any details of plant species, has not submitted plans yet, but that is a requirement to submit to Public Works, Planning, and the Building Department so we can review the plans and ensure that sufficient landscaping is provided and they meet all the requirements. Also indicated on the site plan is a trash enclosure, which is located kind of tucked up against the overpass behind Angle Petroleum over here. The enclosure will be built to city standards. It'll have a roof structure on it, roof system on it. It'll be architecturally compatible with the main building on site. And then lastly, just south of that trash enclosure, directly behind Angle Petroleum, is a proposed stormwater detention basin. They will be pushing the stormwater to that site there. It will be enclosed by a 6-foot wrought iron fence around the basin itself. And so, and that is a condition of approval. We did meet with the applicant on February 1st and the project review committee, and went through we had discussions of conditions of approval, and those conditions are in the staff report for you this evening. Additionally, there is a recommendation in the staff report. So at this time, Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to you. The applicant is here to address the commission if you have questions. Also, we did submit a couple other items for presentation here. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to you. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ken. I have a couple questions. So on East Main Street there, there's a turn lane by the corner. Is that turn lane going to be extended all the way to the other in and out, or the other ability to get into the hotel there? Is that going to?
We are going to extend that turn lane, that center turn lane, as far as possible. Because of right-of-way constraints over there, we might not be able to fit it completely all the way down to where the overpass is for the other driveway. That is why we're limiting that movement out over there for that driveway. We just might not have the room with the frontage road there. So they will be widening a little bit. They're putting curb, gutter, and sidewalk all the way down and connecting curb, gutter, and sidewalk to the opposite side of the overpass there by the apartments.
Okay.
So we'll have to kind of see what type of room we have when they lay that out and see how far we can extend that turn lane.
Okay. And then my other question is, do we have any idea as far as occupancy of the, we have one other hotel over there by Jacktone. Do we have like a percentage of occupancy there?
I don't have a percentage off the top of my head. I do know they are fairly full most of the time.
Okay.
We've talked to them about trying to secure blocks of room for when we have tournaments here in town, like
Oh,
the
okay.
baseball tournament or soccer. And they really have no opportunity to work with us on it because they quite honestly don't have the vacancy rate for that.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners?
Sorry. The existing hotel that we have, those are not suites, correct?
Correct. They might have a couple in there. I'm not too certain, but
Okay.
they're not suites.
So these are more of an extended stay type of a location.
This is they do have an extended stay option here.
Mhm.
Extended stay, if you look at one of the conditions in the staff report there, it's anywhere from more than 30 days, but less than, I think it's 180.
Mhm.
So they could stay. I mean, a lot of times would have a work assignment where somebody might stay a little bit longer
Right.
in those rooms.
Is there any improvements being made to the road directly in front of that location?
Yeah, they are doing curb gutter and sidewalk, like I said, and then they will be restriping that whole area there. They will be submitting plans to restripe that. There is some grant funding that the city has received. I think it's slated for 22, 23 or 23, 24 for a signal at the Main Street and the off ramp there, Main Street and intersection there. So that'll be coming at a little bit future date, but they will be restriping in front of their hotel all the way down to that intersection.
Okay, is that gonna help alleviate that problem of people turning left and which is not a left turn lane?
Yeah, we will specifically be looking at that and how to try to solve that issue. I know exactly what you're talking about there
Yeah.
by the Starbucks. People tend to think that's a turn lane to go left up the overpass and it's not. So that's something that will have to be proposed. It's a condition of approval to submit striping plan so the city engineer can look at it.
Okay,
And we'll keep, that's one of the things we'll be looking at to try to alleviate that issue there.
okay,
When the signal goes in, obviously they'll be looking at that whole intersection and a lot of that might change anyways
yeah.
at that point.
And then there's those, so if you're going that way towards that left turn we just talked about, there's a huge bump, like right as you're going left, that just, I mean, when you hit it, it's like that. If you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the hotel wouldn't be addressing anything like that. It
Okay.
would be more of a public works, something the public works here would have to address if it's an issue, but
Okay.
Any concerns with just traffic in general and the increase that we're going to see there?
Not, if you look at that site and the potential uses that could go there, this is probably one of the more ideal uses that could go there. Hotels don't typically have the in and out traffic in a slug of traffic like you'd see going to Starbucks in the morning or the gas station. It's a little, I think, more intermittent than what you're seeing there currently. On this site, the zoning on this site is C4. It's highway service commercial. It could have been anywhere from another drive-through to another gas station I think this is quite honestly, one of the better uses that can end up there. It will add traffic. I mean, certainly does, but any use there would, I think.
Right.
So it could have been a fast food location.
It could, yeah, the zoning does allow for fast food. It does allow for service stations. The uses there are meant to serve the traveling public, right? So any use could go there that would keep that in mind. Kind of like the Jacktone interchange, the uses that are around that area would be allowable uses in these spots too.
And if I recall, it will have some meeting rooms, congregate rooms that will add a little bit of traffic. But again, I think still, this is a good use for that area there. You showed us a couple different color palettes here. How does it work in terms of, do you get input on which one gets chosen, or does the applicant just get to make that decision?
Typically, obviously, the commission's got one that they would like better than the other. That'd be something that the commission could condition. They submitted those just as examples of what it would look like.
Right.
If there's certainly one you don't want to see, you might condition the project that way. But I think the two that were shown here, and I'll let the applicant get up and speak a little bit, but the two that were shown there was just to show more of like a toned down version. The original submittal was a little more modern looking, I think, and this one, the colored elevations that they submitted a little bit later date, we're trying to tone that down a little bit to match.
Thank
So,
you.
You know, sorry if I'm reiterating, but so the grant for the streetlights, is that guaranteed 110%? I mean, those streetlights are going in with this project at some
I
point?
talked to the city engineer on that today, and he said to our program, we got a certain grant for those lights, and it's programmed funding for 22, 23, or 23, 24.
Okay. And like I said, that huge bump, I think it's called a mill and fill when they try to do it. Is that what it's called, Georgia?
I
Millennium
don't know.
Construction?
I don't do a lot of street work.
Oh, yeah,
So-
but have you driven down it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And have you know the bump I'm talking about
Yeah.
that jerks your car to the right when you
Well,
hit
it's
it?
like going over the overpass
Yeah.
at Jacktown.
Is that, is it too much to put that as a condition to get that fixed?
It would be something that the public works here would have to tackle, not this applicant.
Okay.
It's not their issue to solve.
Okay. I was just thinking that it might be because they're going to be increasing traffic. Okay.
Any other questions from the commissioner, Steve? Anything?
No, yeah, sorry. Well, no, I'm not sorry, actually. Any windows of the hotel is going to be looking into the residence yards and windows over there at like Tiffany Circle. Yeah, and you got the apartments.
There could be a few that look that direction. Obviously, they got windows and rooms on each side of the hotel.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, the applicant is here and would like to address us.
Hello, my name is Jacob Cornano with Basin Corporation, representing Mr. Ed Keith. And anyway, as far as the exteriors go, when we originally presented with Ken and talked about a couple weeks ago, like you said, was a little too modern. We went back. I went with something that is presented behind you here. It's more of it's based off of one of the two renderings that we originally presented. Those were both prototypical renderings from Marriott themselves. That color palette, though, is expressed in these elevations, which I think probably aligns a little bit more with what we discussed earlier. In regards to some of the rooms in the rear of the building that would be looking at more of the residential across the overpass. There are a handful of them, but as far as distance, and then as well as maybe a conditional approval for something as far as like landscape screening. If we scroll down on this presentation here, towards the end, Ken, we actually did update a proposed landscape plan with Chinese elms and some other stuff towards the rear of the property, which over time I think would do that well as far as screening. We've also included, per Ken's request, a shade study. As far as I think it was an important factor to see where shadows were going to be cast, especially over the neighbor's yard, predominantly the one that has a pool. So anyway, we have 4 different presentations here for you, each showing 1 hour before it is completely dark, as well as 3 hours before that. So if you look through it, I think one is in March. We tried to do the equinox and the longest day and the shortest day. And so we have 4 different, seasonal slides there for you. One of which it does appear that it does cast a little bit of shadow. I think the first one there is March. After March, it's not that big of a deal in the summertime, but again, and we get back to December and it looks like it is casting a little bit of shadow over there. That being said, at that time, it is already pretty dark. So I don't know how much of a shadow it's really going to actually impose.
So Jacob, could you clarify, this is March right here.
The bottom one.
Okay, so yeah, so each sheet, if you will, the bottom one represents 1 hour before darkness per the almanac. okay, so that would be March, 1 hour. If it gets dark at 6, it's 5 o'clock.
Exactly. So let me see here. I apologize. I probably should have put some of the time's a little larger there for you guys to see. So yeah, March 20th apparently is at 6:16 is shown on the bottom. And so 1 hour after that, it's completely dark. And then above that, just to kind of reference it, that's 3 hours before the 6:15. So just to kind of get an idea of where the sun's at and the way it's going.
And you've got something for like July and August?
We do. The next slide, I believe, is June 21st, which apparently is the longest day of the year. And again, that time on the bottom, the most important one, I believe, is represented at 7:30. So again, 8:30, an hour after that, it is completely dark. And again, just for reference, the top one is shown at 4:29.
No, not yet. And then you have the equinox also?
So again, we have 4 slides on there for you, pretty much every season. And that is pretty much, those dates are I can't think of the opposite of the equinox, but the shortest days and the longest days of the year are all represented on those 4 slides.
So you're probably looking at September and then December.
Yes, exactly.
Did you do this yourself, the shading?
Someone in my office did, yes.
So during vernal equinox, during the mid part of the day, did you notice any shading going this direction?
No.
Okay.
No, again, so if you go back 3 hours to the upper slide, that's when the sun would be probably more predominantly in front of due south of the building. And as you can see, the shadow that it is casting there is minimal at best.
So the shadow is this direction during that time frame.
And then in red, that was my concern.
Mhm.
But it looks as it's been very well addressed.
Thank you for taking the time to do that.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
important to everybody to take.
Were you finished with your presentation?
Honestly, if there were any questions, I'd be happy to ask them.
I don't know if we interrupted you with your stuff.
No, but by all means, actually, I probably work better that way anyway. As you're going through the slides right there, this is a proposed beginning of a landscape plan. It's predominantly right now just kind of showing a lot of the trees and species that we would be proposing to your departments, and as well with some samples of landscape covering as well. Obviously, that could change per any comments that come about. So
I'm assuming they did a study of, because they want this, you want this business to be successful.
absolutely.
And, those of us who've lived in Ripon for our whole lives tend to think, why would another motel want to come to Ripon? So the expected occupancy is pretty high, is that?
Apparently it is. So I can't speak too much about that. My client though, he does own a handful of hotels up and down California. I know he runs performance studies. And so if he's thinking this would be a good idea, I'd have to believe him. As Ken said, it is kind of more of a longer term stay. Each room is equipped with like its own kitchenette. Yeah, so I do know too, a lot of times occupants are either, business traveling, or also a lot of times insurance companies get involved if there's a claim on your home or something with a flood or fire or something like that. And so that's also a common thing for these kind of stays.
So they primarily cater to a professional clientele is what they've seen.
It is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Deb,
I can answer that
being
question,
in
Jacob.
construction, I've used facilities like this in different areas where I've got to bring in a superintendent who's going to be on a job for a couple of months,
Okay.
and he lives out of the area. We'd move him into an extended stay place like this. But you'll also have, some regular guys, driving their pickup trucks that got to be in an area working for a month or two, and they'll take advantage of
Okay.
it. So it could be anything from a laborer to, an executive that might take advantage of it. I think it's probably a pretty good idea for our location. Where we're at.
Mhm.
Jacob, do you have anything to add to what Kim was saying as far as traffic? You have 100 units. How much in and out would you expect?
No, actually, I think Ken, I don't have a lot more information than what Ken already kind of mentioned, that you're definitely not going to get the high yields of traffic at certain peak hours. I don't, unless everyone's checking out right on at 10 o'clock or something like that. But no, I do know that for the most part, they are generally full.
But as far as additional traffic coming in and out, I don't know if this would be better or worse than, say, a McDonald's in the morning or at 5 to 7 p.m. Just, I think,
Kind of just depends on, do you want these big, chunks of it, or just a steady, additional couple cars coming through here every once in a while?
So also, I'd like to just talk about signage. Is your signage, your sign channel letter, are they illuminated, self-illuminated, backlit?
I do not know.
Okay.
I do not know. I do know that will be obviously a separate permit, and we will have to go through all the channels and, your guys' jurisdictional specifications and all that kind of stuff. I can get that information over to you guys sooner than later if you need that.
Okay. Ken, do you mind if I involve you in this? So of course, a hotel needs to let people know it's there.
Sure. I'm sorry. As far as the building signage, I do believe it's backlit.
It's backlit?
Yes.
Okay. So backlit from the freeway, of course, that's where you're predominantly going to be looking at advertising and letting people know you're there. What about backlit from the section that would be facing the condominiums or the other houses?
That being said, I think that would be up to discussion, especially with Marriott, see what their kind of standards are. But as far as advertising, I don't know if that's going to be a super the possibility of even eliminating the signage in the rear. I think is probably a doable thing.
Reasonable. Okay. And, okay.
Is that a condition you want?
Well, I would like a condition where,
Good.
I understand signage and I understand successful business needs to be there. I just would not want the neighbors. I like the fact that they're not shadowing their property. That's big. I love your landscape plan, and the condition of landscape screening, I think, is great. But to not have backlit signage on the parts that are facing the Ripon residence would be preferred, and I would like a condition like that.
That's great.
But in regard to that though, as well, Ken, there will be a separate lighting permits, and you're going to be watching that anyway, all the
There-
lighting.
They have to submit a separate permit for the signage on the building, but if the commission desires to not have, say, the back signage facing the residents, if they would rather have it not lit, that would be a condition you'd want to include this evening.
Okay.
And then I have one too, kind of like Deborah said, we want the business to succeed. And so can you speak on the sound transmission rating?
So we have not had that study performed yet. We are going to have it done. And one of the issues that has arisen in the past is each room has its own PTAC system. So the air conditioning under the window that goes in and out right there. That has in the past been an issue with sound transmission, regardless of insulation and double pane through the louver themselves and the filter of the PTAC system. So we are currently waiting for the studies to be performed specifically on the site to figure out exactly what we need to do in order to, minimize and get to a certain level, because Marriott International has standards that it has to meet. So we are going to do that. And I'm sure Marriott standards are probably going to be more stringent than potentially you guys, if you have something in your ordinance or something like that. But as far, we haven't had it performed yet. No, we're in the process of it. This project's still pretty infant in the process. So we're trying to get everything together now. But yeah, that is something we will be doing.
So that's something city council will see, Ken?
No, so the rating that was talked about in here is more for the rooms themselves, not hearing a lot of the freeway noise. So the windows they would be putting in and such in the hotel would make it to be a lot.
Right. So that's something that the hotel would deal with, not
I'm just wondering if that number you gave is good enough and if, because I mean, I do think that could affect people coming back if it's not.
Oh,
good
no,
enough.
absolutely. And that's the last thing my client wants to happen. So, no, by all means, yeah, we are definitely looking into that and knowing from previous projects that has been an issue before. So.
Any other questions? Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the project? In favor of the project? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Okay, ask you to come up here and give your name. Maybe you just have questions. Maybe you just have questions for us.
Thank you for having us. Bob and Jean DeYoung, we live on Virginia Street Avenue.
Could you give
and
your address, please, for the record?
240 Virginia.
Thank you.
Our concern is during the school year, which is 8 months a year, the intersection went up East Main, coming at Starbucks and two gas stations. It can be a lengthy process just getting onto East Main. And I assume that with the amount of discussion on traffic, this has already been one of the pressure points probably. But that's our concern. You can wait a long time just to get onto East Main from our side. And we see what's happening on the other side. That intersection needs help. That's our take. Anything added to it would be, who knows? So, thank you much.
Yeah, yeah, well, I can appreciate that. And like, we've already kind of talked about, I thought, you know, I don't know if we want a hotel there, but I don't want another Starbucks and I don't want a McDonald's or a Taco Bell.
Looking
So,
for.
Well, maybe to help your concerns. So I mean, Ken, that's what the traffic light study is gonna be looking at, right?
yeah, the traffic light.
Is that an
Yeah,
objective?
and that's exactly what the traffic signal, the grant that was received for that, that's gonna hopefully help that intersection. Maybe not day one, for when the hotel's built, but it is programmed to get put in. It's something that we have to work with Caltrans on. We completed one over there on Hoff Drive and Colony by McDonald's. It's over there now. That was a stop sign for a long time, and traffic got to a point there where it warranted a traffic signal. So this is kind of the same in the same realm. So we will be tackling that, and they'll look at a lot of just even the surrounding striping and roads. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can do what I do when I'm trying to get out of that neighborhood. I go around the back way, the other way.
I'm thinking that maybe the fact that we've been there 45 years, we've seen too much.
Yeah.
45 years, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and the commission can discuss it and see if we can come up with a motion.
Ken, what would, I don't know if you've talked to the applicant, I should have asked him, but in terms of time frame, when they might be looking to build?
I'm not certain the applicant might.
Optimistically, the end of July.
Oh, this year?
Starting
This
the
year?
project.
Of this
Thank
year?
you.
Okay, and it's a what, a 1-year project or?
Yeah, close to minus will be about a year.
Okay, okay.
So 22 to 23.
So we might have our traffic light when they're done. Yeah. I do have a question in regards to hotels. Has there been any problems with police activity at the other hotel? Is that an issue at all, or is it?
You know, not that I was made aware of. We do send this when the project referrals go out, they go to all the departments and the other agencies. So the fire department and the police department review all these. If there's concerns, obviously the police department weighs in. He didn't mention any issues there, anything that would be of concern at the La Quinta that's there, or even this one that's proposed. So
Mhm.
that's all the information I have on that one.
Okay, okay.
I have an opinion. Awesome project. I love it. I love the fact that Marriott runs a professional operation. I like what I saw from the landscaping, and I would like to see us do the screening of neighbors from that side and the other thing. But I don't think we could have a better project come and utilize this portion of land. It would be beneficial to the community.
I think that landscaping, that shading they talked about to maintain privacy for residents, I think that's pretty vital. So I think it's almost something that has to be done, and it has to be something that's maintained. So even once it goes in, I mean, is there a guarantee that Marriott is going to maintain it as well? Or, because I don't want to see it, I want to see it maintained and maintained nicely so that people have privacy.
To answer that, we do have businesses in town that put landscaping in. I think the investment you're going to see here, look at the Save Mart Center and how they maintain theirs and such. There's some other examples in town that people maybe that don't, other businesses that don't as well. It gets into code enforcement at that point. If
Okay.
it gets totally horrible, where we'd have to address it.
Uh-huh.
Typically, a project of this size and its expense, they're not maintaining landscaping. They're making sure it looks good. But I can't, like I said, there's no guarantee for that, right? It turns into a code enforcement, just like a residential house. If somebody's yard starts looking horrible, we can deal with it that way. Not the ideal way to deal with it, but there's really
No.
nothing else you can do with it.
But should worse come to none, citizens can voice their opinion and get something done with it if it's not maintained. You mentioned that through code enforcement, so there is a way.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it could be dealt with through code enforcement, just like any other code enforcement here in town.
Okay, I don't expect it to go that way at all. I'm just making sure that the citizens, if it does happen, worst case scenario, that our citizens do have a pathway to get it done.
Ken, one last question. Do you have adequate input into the color and the materials? Are you comfortable with that?
I think I do. If you guys are comfortable with what you're seeing here on the screen and what was proposed in the other colored renderings, then I think, yes, we do have.
Okay, it looks nice to me.
Agreed.
So do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion. I'll make the motion included in package 12. The Planning Commission approves Venture Hospitality Incorporated conditional use permit based on the findings and subject to the conditions in the staff report, and adopts a negative declaration, etc., with the following additions. We would request that landscape screening would be done to attempt to mitigate direct views from the neighbor's property. And then also, we would request no backlit signage on the eastern and northern section of the hotel. And if possible, to minimize that signage if not needed for advertising purposes. Is that enough? Oh, yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and that passes. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. You're welcome to
you.
stay for the next one if you're interested.
22.5% landscaping.
It's really good.
Oh, gosh. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is, now this is not a public hearing, correct? It's a discussion item, a major site review for 798 North Jack Tone Road. Pass it over to you, Ken.
So the request in front of you this evening for this site is to construct about a 6,400 square foot multi-tenant commercial building. The proposed project is located in the mixed use district. adjacent to, there's a Tractor Supply, Les Schwab. There's Popeyes and Burger King currently being built in the vicinity there. The parcel is approximately 0.66 of an acre. It is located, like I said, in the partially developed center, and is at 798 Jack Tone Road. Pull up some other, look at my messy, I don't know if I can access some of this stuff. Nope. Well, I'll just talk through the site plan. So the proposed location of the building is oriented towards the northwestern area of the site. So it's tucked up against closer to Tractor Supply and Jack Tone Road. It does meet most required setbacks for the mixed use district, with the exception of the northern property line setback. Due to the small size of the parcel, the applicant is seeking to take advantage of a setback adjustment that we allow in our code. The applicant is seeking to construct the building 5 feet from the northern property line, so tucked up right up against the Tractor Supply parking lot. It does abut like a landscape area between the parking lot and that site. The planning staff and the fire department have reviewed the site, the setback adjustment that's requested, and are in support of the building placement as proposed. Additionally, the property owners adjacent to the setback variances have been notified pursuant to the requirements of the municipal code. The off-street parking facility will be located to the front and east side of the building. For the proposed retail center, the off-street parking facility does provide a total of 23 spaces, 14 standard, 8 compact, and 1 handicapped, which does not comply with the municipal code that for our parking. In order to be in compliance with our code, the site would need to contain 26 spaces, and only 2 of those spaces, or 10%, could be compact. In your staff report, I did kind of lay out different parking requirements for different types of uses. Since we don't know what's going to be going in this retail center, there's a lot of uses that could locate there. You could have just a general retail space, which would require 4 spaces for every 1,000, which does put the required parking for that site at 26. A convenience market, you're looking at about 5.5 spaces for every 1,000. If the whole center was a convenience market, you'd need about 35 spaces. Liquor store, for some reason, liquor stores are obviously a lot less, so you'd only need 11 spaces if it was a liquor store. And then like a fast food or small casual restaurant, you'd be looking at about 64 spaces for that site. So when we look at centers like this and we don't necessarily know exactly what uses are going to go in there, a lot of times we fall back to a shopping center kind of parking ratio requirement. So shopping centers, obviously like the Save Mart Center, we didn't know exactly what uses would be going around Save Mart, but we knew it'd be a mix of different retail users and restaurants and such. So our parking requirements when you get into commercial centers is just more of an average that's within our code. So for a center of this size, you'd probably be looking at about 4.4 spaces per 1,000, which would put the requirement at 28 spaces for the site. So I have outlined a couple options in the staff report this evening for the commission to, I guess, ponder. One would be approve the site as is, knowing that the parking might become an issue depending on the actual end users, because we don't know who those might be. Just kind of keep in mind, industry averages are just that, they're averages based on best known available industry information. We have a parking manual that we look at. They take samples across the United States for different uses and they come up with an average. Obviously, some averages don't work for everything. If you took just the average for like Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out Burger, you'd probably be grossly underparked because of how popular they are. If you had a different use there that wasn't as popular, you might be way overparked. So it's just the average, and that's what those manuals provide, is kind of your best guess scenario of what possibly could be. Or your other option moving forward would be to require the applicant to slightly modify or reduce the size of the building so that the parking and the building sizes kind of match. So they would be meeting our code at that point. So they would probably have to shrink the building down somewhat. And in my estimate, it would probably have to shrink down to about 5,000 square feet of building to be able to fit the parking requirements to match our code. So those are the couple options I think you have in front of you this evening for those. The proposed stalls on the site plan that you're seeing in front of you, they do meet the city requirements. They are 10 by 19, so they're 10 feet wide by 19 long, and the compacts are 8.5 by 17, which is what our code calls for. Main access to the site, it will be provided by the internal roads there by Tractor Supply and Les Schwab within the center. However, I think a typical access point from the public right of way is going to be one existing commercial driveway, which is just north of that new Burger King and Popeyes that are being constructed. Part of their conditions of approval was to modify that driveway approach. They are taking out that odd median that kind of does not allow for a left turn movement as you're heading south down Jacktone. They also are required to restripe Jacktone Road. So they'll be restriping it to what we'll have a two-way left turn pocket on Jacktone Road. So it's more of a safe haven for a car to be able to pull over and wait for an opportunity to turn left into those into that area as they're heading south on Jacktone Road. We've have had some accidents over there in the past when people are trying to turn left. They're stopped in a travel lane trying to cross a double yellow line, which you're not supposed to do. And so we're trying to alleviate some of those safety concerns by adding that two-way left turn striping on Jacktone Road. Eventually, Jacktone Road is slated to be widened when when the west side gets annexed in, and it'll be a divided road with a median at some point. But that's probably off in the future until that annexation happens over there. The exterior of the commercial building, it looks fairly nice. It appears to be a combination of stucco finishes, vertical metal siding, horizontal composite wood siding, some metal awnings, storefront windows. The roof did appear to be a flat roof with clean parapet detail, again, to hide all the associated building equipment on the roof there. And they do have a few sloped roof areas just for architectural interest on the site. The site does contain approximately 15% of landscaping, which does meet the city standard of 15% for the mixed use district. They have not submitted landscape plans at this time, but they will be required to as a condition of approval. Again, it doesn't depict any site lighting, but they will be required to submit site lighting plans to the city for approval for ensuring adequate lighting for public safety and then also shielding on neighboring properties. There is one trash enclosure indicated on the plan. It was more towards the northeastern portion of the plan. Again, it will have to be constructed to city standards. Roof detail has to be architecturally compatible with the main building. Such. There was some signage shown on the elevation drawings as were there just for illustration purposes. Again,
Excuse me, Ken. You skipped over something I got a question about. You got landscaping talked about.
that was an error in there. It was twice in there.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that one doesn't belong there. 12.5 don't belong there. Okay.
They will have to submit separate permits for the signage at the time when they have users, which will go through our sign permit application. We did meet with the applicant and the project review committee to discuss concerns and conditions, and those are in the staff report for you this evening. There's also a recommended action in there, but again, like I said, there's the parking is kind of the issue that I think the commission needs to provide some direction on. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So I'm curious, based on where it's located, it's going to be like right by Tractor Supply, right? And I don't hang out at Tractor Supply all the time, but I do go there occasionally. And it seems like that parking lot is really, really big. It's usually mostly empty. Is there anything saying they couldn't use some of that parking space?
Well, for the fact that they don't own it, or
Yeah.
have a parking easement on it, yeah, they couldn't.
Well, you
do
know,
it. But if they,
I own a commercial building and people who can park there all the time, yeah.
yeah, a lot of times what we see in shopping centers like this is there's a, wasn't ever set up this way, but it could be, is we'd have to look at the parking ratios, is like, much like the Save Mart Center, is they have a big kind of common parking area.
Right.
And there's property lines out at the Save Mart Center. Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 parcels out there, but they have a reciprocal parking and access agreement. So they have an agreement between all the parcels to be able to share parking spaces, have access and drive aisles that are all the same. So if that's something the applicant wanted to work on to try to meet the requirement for parking, they certainly could. I think you would have to get, obviously, Tractor Supply would have to agree to it. But you're right, seems to be a lot of parking spaces open over there. There never seem to be that full, but
Yeah.
it's not.
Okay, I was just wondering how that works. So it's something that could happen in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of times a developer, when they come in, if they're setting up a shopping center, will set all that up to begin with. With this particular shopping center area, they didn't do that. They could, like I said, we just have to ensure that the number of parking spaces is adequate for everybody in there.
All right. Well, it's been kind of piecemeal businesses as they've come in. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Ken?
I would want to reiterate the parking issue. I have no problem with the northern property line and the 5-foot exception. But, looking at the number of spaces when 26 should be required based on our average or standard, and only 2 of those being compact, right? Is that correct? So now we're talking about, that's roughly 7%. And we're moving that to 36% of the parking spaces would be compact spaces. That just doesn't meet what I would consider Ripon standards. So I would have a major issue with the parking situation if there isn't a formalized agreement. And, being in construction, oftentimes we work with the customer who formalizes an agreement for shared parking. Say they're putting a place in a commercial center, and those other spaces aren't used on a Sunday. Let's say it's a church, and they have a formalized agreement with the businesses in the area. So I would say this needs to be remedied either with a formal agreement or shrinking the building to get it to what I would consider our standards. That'd be my input.
Yeah, that was pretty much going to be my comment. I think we have a standard. I'd like to see the standard met. We have I don't know if we have a huge parking problem downtown, but I don't want to see another parking problem over in this shopping area.
If I want to know the future, I go to the Great Zandor and put in my 25 cents. If I want to know the past, I go to Kenny. Kenny, Tractor Supply, how many parking spots do they have per?
I haven't had an opportunity to go through those and count. I'd have to look at their spaces and then look at the square footage of their facility and then see if they have more than enough. It seems like they do, just off of what we typically see out there, but I'd have to look at it for sure.
That's part, for me, the other thing is setting a precedent. This is,
Right.
I'm always afraid to set a precedent that's going to come back to bite us somewhere else. You make an exception in one place.
Yeah, we can't enforce the standard if we don't enforce the standard today.
Is the applicant here? And would you like to speak with us? You are. You're it.
We saved the best for
No,
last.
not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Good evening, Brian Rosenberger with API Architects. Yes, it's a small site. To get a large enough building for the proposed use and also to meet, what they would like to do, and to, some of it, as you know, I said, going to be lease space. We had to shrink some parking. Approximately 25 feet of the south property line going from east to west is the drive. Their property line goes to the center line of the drive coming off of Jack Tone. So that's unusable property, even though it is actually part of their square footage. And so that was that, and some utilities that are on the property that are for other sites or encumbrances that were just in the way of getting the the parking there. So I appreciate the comments, I really do. Nobody likes to go to a business and not be able to find a spot to park or have cars that aren't yours in your parking lot. But this is probably to get the size of the building that works for them. This was the best that would come up with.
Do you have any idea what sort of businesses they're going to put in that building?
They just want to be retail lease spaces. There's no known users at this time. The owners are thinking about a use for themselves, but they haven't decided on anything yet.
Like the look of the building. Always appreciate your design. API
Oh, thank
always
you.
does a great job with
Thank
design.
you.
So, no, it's very
Appreciate that.
nice. And I sympathize in terms of the issue, but hope, I would hope that maybe you could work something out with the Tractor Supply and as far as the
Okay.
parking arrangement goes.
Okay. Question, if we made the building smaller, would there be, if we were higher than the minimum small car, if it was 15 to 20%? Just curious if something like that would be acceptable to get parking in there, not have to take too much square footage out. So
I have
just,
some input into that if that would be acceptable. So in 2019, 18% of the cars sold in California were considered small cars that would fit in a compact spot. So compact spots are designed for the compact or subcompact cars.
Mhm.
So a mid-sized car is wider
Mhm.
and longer. And although you could argue, well, the length might work backing up and K, but the width is the big thing with the doors. We like comfort. So I've noticed that there's 18% in 2017, the number was slightly higher, but we tend to run pretty close to about 18% of the cars sold can fit in a compact spot. Now, the issue is just like handicap stalls, is that when I go to the bathroom, I don't look for the biggest one available, okay? Just because I drive a compact, I don't park in a compact spot unless it happens to be super convenient. So the other thing is that these compact spots are really not first choice spots, okay? Easy to get to. So I would say if you take 18%, because I'm trying to look at Ken's number and see if there was room for moving around. You take 18%, only half of those cars park in a compact spot because they'd like a bigger spot if they can get it, and maybe 9%. So then I looked at the ratio you had, and it was pretty close to just about that, 26 cars, 2 compact spots. I would be comfortable moving it, but based on the numbers, not very much.
A question for you, Ken, in terms of our standard of 10 by 19, what are most cities around us using for a full size?
A lot of cities around us are 9 by 19. I don't necessarily the length is the difference. It's the width. of the sign.
And then the compact spots, we're at 8.5 by 17. Is that closer to the average compact, or is that still a little bit bigger than?
I'm not sure on the compacts.
Okay.
I've mostly looked at the standard spaces because that's usually
Yeah.
the biggest chunk of the parking. I've really never looked at
Right.
compacts on that.
And I haven't, I thought it was 9, but I don't know about the
City,
compact spots.
City of Modesto compact is 7.5 by 15.
7.5, 15 in
7.5.
Modesto.
I believe Stanislaus County is similar. Do not remember what.
Did you hear that?
17
He said
is.
Modesto is 7.5 by 15.
Yeah, that would be a
compact.
state mandate compact spot.
Yeah.
Ribbon likes our spots so you don't open up and you don't like bash the next.
Of course.
door.
Nobody wants the D.
Or the guy parks right next to the line and you're like, so, yeah, a little friendlier.
So Ken, if we require that the building be reduced to only 5,000 square feet, how many spaces would be required then?
That's a good question.
If you're looking at the standard for like a shopping center, a small shopping center, you're just quick math here.
So it was.
You said for general retail, it's 4 spaces for every 1,000 square feet.
Yeah,
So that would put us at 20 if we reduce it.
Yeah,
to
you're a little
5,000.
higher. I think if you're gonna want to give a little wiggle room in there,
Because it might not be just general retail.
right? Like I said, you get a small restaurant user in there, like the strip center I'm really thinking of is kind of out by Carl's Jr. You got Starbucks in part of it. It's got the drive-through. This one
Uh-huh.
doesn't have drive-through, so you probably won't have a Starbucks, but they got Subway. There's a little Mexican restaurant in part of that, and there's been some retail users out there. They don't seem to last out there by the freeway, but it's some of the small restaurants. Those are going to drive your parking needs up.
Mhm.
That
So that-
area is a real pain in the rear actually.
So, you're looking at about, so you're probably looking at more like the shopping center standard of 4.4. So you at 5,000, you're going to be at 22 spaces
Okay.
minimum.
Which there would be plenty, there would be more than enough space.
Right.
Yeah.
As you shrink the building, you're opening up more spaces for some parking, but it's, I'd let Brian, the expert, work on some of that.
So then, Brian, to
Yes.
you, I have a question.
Sure.
If it sounds like we're kind of met with, we have to decide to approve it as is, or maybe make some conditions. So one of the conditions would be for us to say you need to make the building smaller, or the other condition would be that we tell you, you got to go work with the other businesses to ensure there's spaces for parking. How do you feel about either one of those?
I'd have to speak to the project developer, his input on that. The only part we do have control over is to make the building smaller.
Right.
We can't say what the adjoining property owners are going to do, or if they want to be involved. So,
Okay.
I'll
That
present it
answers
to
my
them.
question.
Pardon?
That answers my
Okay.
question.
I'll present it to them, they may be in favor of that.
So the other option is, I think where you're going is you want to leave the door open for them, okay?
Yeah.
So you could approve the project and put in those conditions, okay? Meet parking standards, or it could be denied without prejudice, which would mean that it could come back before the planning commission without paying a fee. Is that correct, Ken?
They would pay an appeal fee, I believe, on that. Well, we could double check that.
Without prejudice, that's basically a timeline thing, right?
Yeah, so denying a project without prejudice allows an applicant to reconfigure the project or redesign a project and bring it back at any time. Denying a project with prejudice means they can't come back for a year. So I would, if your commission so desires, I would be recommending that you would do it without prejudice, so that gives them an opportunity to work some things out with the developer and make some proposals to the commission that might be more acceptable.
Any input? No input? Okay.
Any more questions?
I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brian.
Thank you.
Thank Brian, love the building.
Yeah,
So,
and it's kind of exciting because this is the last space
yeah.
in that area.
Yeah, that actually,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, so with that said, that's actually what I was gonna bring up. This is the last project for that area, and then it's built out. So if there is a parking problem, there's nowhere to fix it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nowhere to fix it. And every other business that has come here and built in that area has adhered to the Ripon standard. I would like to see the Ripon standard upheld here.
And there is no street parking.
No.
No city parking anywhere in the area that you could argue, well, that could balance it. So,
No, I think it's really thinking outside the box to go talk to Tractor Supply or go talk to Swear Tire, but
Les Schwab.
Les Schwab, oh, sorry, Les Schwab, Swear, yeah, sorry. Well, you know where I get my tires. But I don't want to see that as a condition. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see the standard met. Every other business in that area met the standard. This is the last spot to go. I think it needs to meet the standard. I'm not set on that. If somebody has something better to tell me.
I think for me, part of it would depend upon looking at Tractor Supply, and if they have an oversupply of parking, I'd be open to a formalized agreement that said, they could utilize some of those spaces. But I don't know, based on their square footage, how how many spaces they have. So I'm open to either of those two directions because it solves the issue.
So is it possible for us to make a motion that they would need to either reduce the size of the building to 5,000 square feet or have a formal agreement with the neighboring businesses? Is that even a valid motion or?
I don't know if Tom's still online.
Here I am.
Tom?
Hey,
Oh,
Tom.
wow. Big gun.
I've been listening to you guys all night.
You
I
didn't turn it up?
I wouldn't have a problem with that motion, Commissioner Van Essen. I wouldn't have a problem with the motion being framed in that way.
We can't hear you.
Oh, shoot. You still can't hear me?
We got you. a
Good
little
now.
bit.
Oh, okay. What I was saying is I would not have a problem with the motion being framed in that way, reduce the size of the building or get consent from adjoining property owner. I believe that was the way you framed the motion.
Right.
So he's okay with it either way.
So you're okay with that motion either way? Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you. So,
Well, there's more work to be done though, if that happens. I mean, don't you need to evaluate like what the numbers are that's required of, let's say they go to Tractor Supply. Don't we need to know what the Ripon standard is for Tractor Supply?
Well, I don't think
Whether
we-
they agree to it or not.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't think we could, any kind of an arrangement could be approved unless Tractor Supply does have an overage of parking.
Wouldn't we already know that right
And
now?
that's something that you could actually task staff with, if you guys are comfortable with the architecture of the building. If they, I mean, I wouldn't put a square footage on the building. I would just make sure that you say reduce the size of the building to where the parking in the building meet the requirements. So is it 5,000? Is that the magical number? I don't know. Is it 5,100 or 4,700? Or does Tractor Supply have adequate enough and parking to where they could do a reciprocal parking and access agreement? And if they would be willing to work with the developer on it, then one of those two could solve that problem.
so we could task the staff with making sure.
Yeah, if the site is substantially in compliance or it looks substantially of what was in front of the commission this evening, you could task staff with approving a project with that in mind. If it's going to change drastically, I think you'd want to come back in front of the commission to look at the project.
Right.
It would,
Right.
Yeah, I want to see it again.
and it's gonna change drastically. And that's the only concern I have, is that if it changes in a way we don't like, but we've approved it already, under those conditions. So I like the direction Ken's talking, because it continues to give staff input.
Okay.
And it comes back to us.
Does it go? It doesn't come back to
No,
us.
staff has the input.
Well, I mean, you can condition it that if they do get a reciprocal parking agreement with Tractor Supply, because if they have adequate enough, then that could be done at staff level. If they have to reorient the building or reconfigure the building and parking a little bit, then it could come back to commission for approval at that time.
I think it is. It's the last piece of the puzzle. You want to see it, right?
Yeah, because if it doesn't have to change based on the reciprocal parking agreement, then fine. I like the building as it is. I mean, I do personally, so.
I do as well. And
But if it has to change, then I think it should come back.
Well, and here's one of the things I would throw in with the reciprocal parking agreement. Technically, as I'm looking at this, Les Schwab, those spots directly adjacent. If I was pulling into this building from the street and pulled in front and drove down that driveway and I did not see spots, I would be more inclined to go directly to the northwest side of Les Schwab. That would be my simple solution to finding a spot, which those are some key spots for Les Schwab.
Yeah, those are.
But also, as we look at this, they could potentially, and I'm not an architect, so punch through into the parking area of the Tractor Supply where you've got the compacts, which would tend to direct more traffic in that way if you had a mutual access agreement. Also, if they did allow it, it may change a little bit about how you locate because, or, maybe employee parking would be behind the building or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we need to see it. If they did try to punch through, that also changes your landscape percentage as well. And that, so those unintended consequences we could get ourselves into if we don't make sure we're taking another look at it if they do have to change it.
Yeah, and like Dave said, I mean, us not getting this right could affect, not Swear Tire, Lake Schwab.
That's where I would go.
Yeah, so I mean,
I can see it, right?
Yeah, so I think me and George are on the same page. Whatever happens with this, we want to see it again. And is that right, George?
I think we probably need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna make a change, then I think we do. But if there's a possibility of a parking agreement where they don't punch through, they don't change landscape, which I think staff will be able to determine that. Because if the building stays the same, I don't feel like I really need to see it again. But if it does have to change, I feel like I do. I don't know how to make that motion though.
I want to see it again.
We bring Tom back up.
Or we could go back to what Dave suggested and deny it without prejudice and have them come back once they've solved it.
Yeah. There you go. That's pretty simple.
Tom, you're muted.
It's also possible, can you hear me now? It's also possible that you could just continue the matter to the next planning commission meeting and give staff, I think, has some more direction in terms of where the commission would like to go. See if we can work out some language between now and then.
Okay, so we just continue it to our next meeting, giving everybody some more time to work on it.
Okay.
It sounds like that might be, there might be some work that could be done that would get us closer to the finish line.
Okay.
Well, why we got Tom.
Yeah, way to go, Tom.
I would be comfortable with that too.
Yeah. That work for you, Ken?
Make a motion that we postpone this item until the next planning commission?
Is that, do we need to make a motion for that? Is that?
Yeah, it would be best for the chair to entertain a motion to continue this matter to the March planning commission meeting, pending further work from staff and the applicant.
Okay.
I'll make that exact motion as Tom mentioned it.
Is that cutting it too close?
Yeah, I was worried about that.
Can we give them a little bit more time than that if necessary? Or is that?
I don't have a problem with that. It's if we have not gotten where we need to go, maybe we ought to look at April, but I think it needs to be a date certain. We need to pick a date certain tonight. And if April is more comfortable, is also the applicant maybe have some scheduling issues we need to discuss with them as well.
I think we can continue this to the March meeting, and if they're not ready by that point on the agenda, we can continue again to the April meeting. So gives them some opportunity to.
Okay. All right. Okay. So motion.
Yeah, I made it.
Okay.
I make a motion, just as Tom said it, that
Second.
we move this to.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Sorry, we're gonna make you work.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's a great looking building.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see it, everything finished out there. It's been a long time coming. All right. Any reports?
Nothing to report.
You have nothing to report?
We do have I think one item for the March agenda. It's going to be an update to our municipal code, one of our sections in the municipal code. Currently, we're working with Bethany Home on their project. It's more looking like April or May meeting for them. We are working through a couple items that we would have for presentation to the commission on that. So that one's kind of in the pipeline, but not going to quite be ready for March. But that's all we have, I believe.
Well, and this one,
And this one.
we'll get to
There
talk
we
about
go.
this again.
And it
Any
won't be-
reports from
and it won't
Tom?
be Valentine's Day.
I have no report. Thanks for inviting me to your meeting. It sounds like I'm going to be back in March.
Good to see you, Tom.
All right,
Likewise,
meeting
guys.
is adjourned till March. What is it, March 14?
March 14th. Nicely done, Jay.